A cold, wintry gale was howling outside as Margaret Fraser lay on the couch in front of the peat fire in the cottage where she and her husband Norman lived on the west coast of Scotland's Isle of Skye. It was December 1900. Margaret was expecting her fourth child, and since her husband, a shepherd, was out on the hillside, Mrs. McKinnon, a neighbor, had come in to help tend to the youngest of the Frasers' 3 children, Morag, a little girl about a year old. Both women were drowsy. Soon Mrs. McKinnon nodded off, lulled by the warmth of the glowing peat fire. Margaret Fraser was almost asleep too, when she heard a low muttering. She opened her eyes and saw 3 ugly little old women sitting around the fire, whispering together, as they admired the sleeping child. They were certainly not women from the neighborhood. Then, Margaret suddenly understood. These were no ordinary visitors. They were witches who had come to harm the baby. Margaret pretended to sleep while one of the hags got up, reached out for the child, and said to the others, "We will take her away and leave at once." The other 2 disagreed. "You have so many from this house already," countered one. "Better instead to put a curse on her." So the first witch cast a spell. "When this sod of peat shall burn away, that child shall die and go to clay." And she hurled a piece of peat into the fire. Then the witches vanished. Margaret rose quickly from her couch, took the piece of peat from the fire and extinguished it into a pail of water. Then, wrapping the peat in a rag, she locked it away in a chest and hoped that she had beaten the awful curse. The chest and its dreadful secret remained a mystery in the family for more than 20 years. Morag, the baby girl, grew up to be a beautiful young woman who eventually became engaged to a handsome young man. It was the custom in the islands in those days that an engaged girl did not attend church from the day of her betrothal until the day of her marriage. So one Sunday while her parents attended church, Morag felt more tempted than ever to have a look in the old chest that her mother always kept locked and hidden in the cupboard. She found a screwdriver and forced it open. She saw nothing unusual inside except a piece of charred peat wrapped up in a rag. She couldn't imagine what possessed her mother to keep a piece of peat so carefully concealed in a chest. She had never heard it spoken of in the family. Morag could not think of any better use of the piece of peat than to toss it into the fire. No sooner had the peat begun to burn than the girl grew afraid. She was seized with a strange feeling that something was going to happen to her. Meanwhile, Morag's parents were making their way home from church. As they walked, they heard an oyster catcher down by the shore crying. This bird, when in flight, looks like a black and white cross. Its melancholy cry was taken as a warning of imminent disaster. Getting nearer home, the Frasers heard their dog whining anxiously and saw the animal running around the house, obviously excited. They ran to the cottage. Inside, they found Morag. She was dying from no visible cause. There was no sign of the peat that the witches had cursed more than 20 years before. It had burned to nothing. The fate that Morag had been saved from in her infancy had caught up to her at last.